Oh, and we are
Our
live.
lives.
Yay. All right. So I like to launch into these pretty fast. I'm just making sure that we are actually hitting my streaming because I am not seeing me yet on Facebook.
May well take a minute or two.
Yeah. So if everybody's watching this right now, somehow you're seeing this and I'm not. Oh, there we are. It,
Ta-da!
it, it kicked in. All right. So sorry for all the preview stuff of us not talking about anything other than are we live for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. This is me, and this is Caroline Pope, and I've known Caroline for quite a while. And we would like to bring something unusual, I think. First, I'll have Caroline introduce herself and talk about what she does, because I don't just bring anybody on here. I don't just go, I think I'll just bring randomly somebody on here to talk about veganism and animals. No, I bring in the absolute best animal communicator I know, and that's Caroline, to talk about a subject I think needs to be addressed because it gets talked about every which way to Sunday, but never addressed in the way we're doing it tonight. So, Caroline, add to what I've said. Tell people what you do, how long you've been doing it, and where you live.
Thanks, Keith. I definitely should get you to write all my promos and be my business manager, I think. I've been a professional animal communicator for a little over 27 years now. I'm an Aussie through and through. And yeah, it's something that a lot of people talk about, but not from the animal's perspective, which is fair enough because most people don't do what I do for a living. But animals perceive the world so very differently to what we do, and that's often overlooked. I mean, you look at people with dogs. You want to hashtag trigger me. He's not a dog. He's a four-legged human. We'll
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
brilliantly.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And look, I've spoken to one place. Oh God, one of the very first communications I did, and we were actually working on a horse, but we were walking through a paddock, and there was some really cute. Apparently, they were 3-day-old calves, and they knew. I said, "Oh, you're going to use them for meat cows, are you?" And she went, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, they just told me." And that really made her squirm, I think. She didn't think that 3-day-old calves knew that they were going to wind up in the meat factory, but they did, and they were
Wow.
fine with it. Yeah, that
Okay,
really
so
rocked her.
let's just stop right there because what you just, and thank you for launching out of the gate and not holding back. Just dive right on in.
Do
So
I
no, you don't.
ever?
So this is what this I'm going to hopefully pose questions as people would on the banner here. I'm looking actually for a comment section. I'm going to leave the comment section up and see if we have anybody comment. I think it's set up for that. Anyway, but right now I'm commenting. All right. You said how old? 3-week old?
Day.
3-day old calves knew
Yeah.
why they existed and where they were headed.
Yep. I do
All right.
wonder. It's a bit like kids, some of them come in with fragments of past lives or whatever, and they lose it as they get a bit older. Whether because they'd literally just incarnated, some of that was there, I don't know. That was certainly the youngest of that kind of thing. But yeah,
Well, yeah, I play a game with myself to try to put things in perspective, and I call it the 1,000-year game. And the 1,000-year game goes like this: if I can really try to embody knowing I'm going to live 1,000 years, or maybe I am 1,000 years old. Maybe I'll play the 5,000-year-old game. I've been alive for 1,000 years. I have a 5,000-year lifespan, probably. Now, how do I feel about everybody else who one human lives to be 20, dies in a car accident? One lives to be 50, dies of cancer. One lives to be 95, organs fail. If I'm a 1,000-year-old person, I'm one of these strange, vampiric immortal things, these creatures of the night. And I'm looking at 20 or 50 or 90. Do you think that really has that much difference to me in my mind if I'm 1,000 years old?
not at that age, no.
Right? It all just kind of blends in. Well, it's all short. It's all not very long. We, most of the time as human beings, we look at humanity and we see somebody die in a car accident in 20 and go, oh, God, it's tragic, like even more tragic, because they didn't have a chance to live their lives and have a career and romance and just build a life. They never had a chance. Whereas if somebody dies at 95 of organ failure, it's, oh, that's so sad, but it's not the same because we feel like they did their thing, they've lived their life. And I always find it interesting because all of us are obviously, you're going to die. It's only a matter of when, and it's all a matter of perspective. And here's the thing, unless, of course, I'm embalmed and so toxic nothing can eat me, something is going to eat my body eventually.
Yeah. And
Bacteria, whatever.
that's the thing. Animals don't have a problem with it. What they have a problem with is the how. And the meat abattoirs and stuff, not pretty. And particularly factory farming. No excuse. No excuse. We can do better. But go back to and some of the smaller abattoirs and stuff where or the ones where you can pick your cow and they're basically they throw down some hay, the cow starts to eat the hay, bang, it's all over. You know, that is, let's be honest, cows don't live that long in the wild.
Right.
Or people talk about dogs and cats. Oh, I don't want to play God. Well, the first time you give them a medication, you protect them from predators, you give food, you're playing God. You can't have it both ways. Um, and euthanasia by a vet or a bullet is a hell of a lot kinder than being torn apart, which would happen in the natural environment. Nature is very, very effective, but democratic or politically correct, it's survival of the species, not the individual. And most of the time in the wild, animals die pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid. I mean, you're in Australia and I'm in the U.S., so we didn't have the same TV shows, but we had a show on every Sunday, maybe Saturday or Sunday, called Mutual of Omaha's Wildlife Kingdom. And Mutual of Omaha was, I think, an insurance company. They sponsored Wildlife Kingdom, and every week they were showing different animals in the wild and all this different. It was that day's National Geographic on video, and so I would watch that and just be amazed at the brutality, of what was going on when animals were taken down, when the predator would finally catch the prey. And then, of course, they were not giving you the most graphic pieces on television, network television in the 70s and
Prime
80s.
time. Yeah.
No, but now we can watch that. We can watch from beginning to end to devouring the animal. We can watch all of it because we have access to everything.
And
And
that's where they did have a lot of problems. I know a lot of the film, you know, Bellamy and Sir David Attenborough and all the rest of that
mm-hmm.
was if you're studying, you don't interfere. And if mum gets sick or um, the kitten or the tiger cub or whatever's struggling, they can't step in. Now that
Yeah.
would be very difficult because you would have your favourites, but I mean, if you want to do nature as it is, you got to do nature as it really is, not nature as we'd like it to be. Big difference.
And I love it that you're taking it straight into nature, because I think that's the part that overall as humanity, we're so far removed
Moved
from
totally.
nature's cycle, so far
Well,
removed.
even going back to, I think we're about the only generations that don't see the constellations that well. I mean, we've been using it for navigation and tools and everything for thousands and thousands of years, and now with all the light pollution and stuff, can't even see them half the time.
Yeah, if you didn't have the tech, you couldn't navigate, not by the stars, not anymore, not like we did.
Yeah.
And just even understanding how many people who live in cities, Eric's like, sounds like walking in the Bronx, getting torn apart, I guess, by predators. Uh,
Oh, we're living in Victoria and copping machetes. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I mean, how many people though who live in cities have ever actually stepped foot on a working farm?
Yeah, and I mean that's it. Kids think milk comes out of containers. Oh, all of that. And I mean it was interesting, and I'm not picking on any particular religion, but I dislike halal slaughter. I don't think we should ever do it. yeah, that's just me. I do not believe in it.
But
And I know,
describe, people won't know what that. I mean, they'll know that maybe it's from Islam, but what
yeah,
describe halal
they
butcher?
don't
What's that
stun
like?
the animal. They slit its throat and let it die by inches. And yeah, no excuse. Yeah, you're not riding on camels in the desert anymore. It's yeah, and I mean, I know England and several countries now in Europe, bless them, have banned it, and I'd really like to think we would here. And they actually did with some of a bunch of Muslim people. They filmed it and actually showed it, and they were crying hysterically. And oh my god, that's so cruel. Well, that's what you are advocating for. So again, they don't have any real idea of what goes on.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. And I mean, take that to the other extreme with your vegans and your vegos. Um, there was, and I've been looking for the last 24 hours, but I can't find a source. It was a fabulous article I read 12 months ago or less. It's not that long ago. And they were studying plants and found that they emit, I mean, we all emit frequencies and stuff, but they now know that plants talk to each other through root systems and blah, 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 blah,
Hmm.
blah. But also studying, they were roses. And I know it caught my attention because I was actually watering the roses 10 minutes before this article came up, which is why it got my thing. And roses, it's no different to animals with telepathic communication. When they were looking at gardeners that enjoyed gardening and were really looking after their plants, when they went out, when they were a couple of miles from home, roses, but basically did the equivalent of a serotonin uptake in a human or the dog when he knows the owner's coming home. The plants were doing that. They only did it obviously in gardens that were well looked after, but they knew when those people were coming back. And that is
Mm.
something that I don't think most people are aware of. Now, I know plenty of communicators that can chat with trees, not my
Yeah.
forte, nature spirits, I don't. Um, but there are some that can. And I'm figuring it's exactly the same. Everything has a consciousness, everything has feelings, but it's no different to, Elon wants to talk about going to Mars. How do we know there aren't life things on Mars? Just because it's not in the form we are
Right.
doesn't mean they may well be a lot more ethereal in shape or body contexture or whatever. There might be stuff underneath. I don't know. But if it's not like us, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Some of you may know who Teal Swan is. Some of you may not. Teal Swan is she's actually a pretty insightful person, but she's a survivor of satanic ritual sex abuse as a child, and she saw horrendous things that I won't cover here. If you want to go look her up, you can. But she has been a vegan forever, and she says that she just cannot do the thought of doing anything with the central nervous system. She just can't handle. She does acknowledge that plants. I saw this video like yesterday. She said, I recognize also that plants are alive and they communicate, and there's awareness of a kind. And we should actually even be conscious of what plants we're eating and how they were taken care of before they were cold. She goes, but they don't have a central nervous system. So this is the thing I hear a lot of people in the whole meat, no meat argument say: if it has a face, if it has a central nervous system, we have no business eating it at all. It's cruel and even spiritually will stunt your growth.
And how do they then go with every indigenous culture throughout history, as far as I know? I mean, I'm happily stand to be corrected, but they're all meat eaters. Don't get me wrong, they ate the plants, but you ate whatever you could get, and you couldn't stay too long in one area. I mean, even go back to merry old England, Elizabeth I and Henry VIII and all the rest of that. One of the reasons they went on progress in the summer is because if you've got a court full of people, not only do you need to get rid of the fleas and clean the castles, but you've literally wiped out all the food supply and so forth.
Mm.
Because they used to go deer hunting and wild boar hunting and all. I mean, that wasn't just sport, that was to feed everybody in the
Hmm.
castle. And of course, you've
Right.
then knocked most of it off. So you've got to go elsewhere and give it a chance to recover.
It's interesting. I saw, I think it was Professor Jiang who does predictive history. That's his YouTube channel. And he's become quite popular lately because of his analysis of the world events with the current war going on. And he talked about, I believe it's the same guy, he talked about how the world actually should have about 1 billion people. And the only reason we have 8 billion people is because we need people to send into wars to be expendable. It's simply to go and fight, have boots on the ground, and that ideally the earth should really support about 1 billion people. And the only way we're able to do it is for people to eat a lot of plants and garbage, and also to use chemicals to create the ability to grow that sheer number of plants to feed all 8 billion people. And I've wondered about that because I'm with you. I look back. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States, which has all 4 seasons. You can freeze your butt off in the wintertime, and you can also bake like you're in an oven in the summertime. You have all of it. And in the wintertime, if you looked around and you're like, well, let's just pretend for a minute none of these systems exist. It's just me, a shovel, a spade, and bow and arrows, guns with ammo, whatever, things to hunt, fishing, do some ice fishing. If you had your options in the middle of winter, in the middle of winter in Missouri, you aren't eating anything growing other than an animal. There's no way in hell. There's nothing alive, and there hasn't been for
Well,
quite a
that's why they
while.
called them hunter gatherers, because they gathered to put away for the wintertime.
Right, but there's just not that much to even put away. If you think about what we had to eat as plants before we started doing a lot of crossbreeding to make them starchier and more flavorful, you know what a carrot looked like before we did that, right?
Oh, totally different. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it. Oh, it's all right. I'm just trying to get a puppy chew. Eat that. Um, I think they weren't even orange, were they?
Oh no, they were a little brown, shriveled up little root. And
Yeah.
so what we were storing at that point, I dare say probably wasn't anything like that. There wasn't much to store. It was more about curing and smoking meats to eat
Mhm.
to get you through the wintertime if you're going to make it or not. And
And
so
if
I just, how do you, so how would you do an all plant-based diet without modern convenience? And I know I'm veering off the path of what the animals say about their lives being in the food supply, and I want to go right back to that because I don't want to lose people. Them going, this is not what I came on here to watch. But I've always wondered. I mean, if you don't have shipping, you don't have refrigeration. I would love to hear how you're an all plant-based eater through the dead of winter in Nebraska.
there's actually, and I don't know whether it's available, you might have to get a VPN and change it to England. But some of the history hit stuff with Ruth. God, I can't think of her surname, but there's an architect herself. She's a historian, and another guy. There's three of them in England, and they live for 6 months as they did, and they've got all the equipment and stuff because England's pretty good on heritage, so they freeze it all. So they did as people lived in the Tudor period, and they farmed as they did in the Tudor period. That was rather entertaining watching them do the horses. And I mean, they tried, yeah, they caught a Dartmoor pony and trained it for the Edwardian period, the Victorian period, and yeah, they were killing the pig for the year, and
Mhm.
yeah, you saw it cutting it up, salting it, smoking it, all the stuff that they used to do, and they lived, yeah, as you say, they put some away and that's how they lived, and were they going to have enough food and all the rest of that. And that's why farmers diversified so much. And where they were, I think it was near a river, could have been Kent or something. It was very much the south side, but they got strawberries 6 weeks or so before London. So although they were very labor intensive, that then gave them the cash, putting that in as a crop and then shipping it by barge down to London the next day. That gave them enough cash to be able to buy other foodstuffs to eat.
Right, but what you're telling me right there, That happened yesterday
Yeah.
in human
Oh,
history.
in human history,
That was
yeah, and I
just
mean that is
just
it's a
yesterday.
really good thing. Even how many women drowned because you wore all those clothes and
Oh my
stuff,
gosh.
going
Yeah.
down to draw the water. We don't even think of those
God.
sorts of things. We have gone
Right, right.
so far
We're so
in
far.
such a short, and we really have lost touch with most of nature, humanity, um, all that sort of stuff.
And
And
if
I
you go back
don't think,
15,000 years ago, none of that
yeah,
was going on that we know of. Go back
no.
20,000 if
And
you
I
want to.
mean, if we had no electricity and no internet, there's places in the country, yes, you'd have to draw water, but some people have still got a well.
Right.
But even with that, this it's so much more energy just to do that that
Oh,
people
right, right.
don't realize. I mean, I know even when I was staying on the farm, it was an hour. We only had a canara, which is a wood fire for heating. It was an hour a day was to drag the wood, cut the wood, chop the wood, do all of that to feed the fire to stay warm in winter. It took an hour a day.
Wow.
So that really every single day now I turn on a gas heater, I think of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the sort of stuff. And then again, going back to the animals with that, if that's how much we've changed in a short period of time, what we forget is they haven't. Instinctually, they are the same as we were slash are 1500 years ago. And people say, oh, we've become civilized. I say bullshit. We have not.
Mhm.
We like to think so. I mean, there was this great meme, and keep in mind, I'm in Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world. Someone put this great meme up during COVID saying, if you don't understand resource guarding in dogs, go to the toilet paper aisle at Costco.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and
No,
that's
it's mine.
and we are not that civilized,
No.
but we all like to pretend we are, and that's fine. Um, but when you then look at your animals, you've got to realize that they are the same, you know, as we were in a lot of ways with their own species. And although they adjust very well to be with us, um, we tend to forget that they have to use a lot of self discipline and all the rest of that because it's not just because it looks like they've settled in well with us doesn't always mean it's easy for them.
Mm.
I
So
mean,
even
I have problems with the puppy, and it's not his fault. He's fabulous, but I don't have a large backyard.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yes, he's walked multiple times a day on lead, but I have to drive half an hour away, a couple of times a week to a big enclosed area that's an off lead with fences because I can't trust a young puppy without a recall, but he needs to get that cardio
Hmm.
and get the frustration out of his system.
Well, let's not fail to mention that he is a herding dog,
Oh, he's a
is he
cattle dog,
not?
yeah, an Australian cattle
Yep.
dog. So yeah, they are high energy, but as they're growing, they need the cardio as well as just basic muscle buildup. And I mean, that's all a
Hmm.
part of what they do. They play with the other pups, they run. And in suburbia, you can't do as much of that.
So you
I mean,
don't
look at all
think?
your apartment dogs.
Well, there's tons of them here in the States. Caroline, there you are. Hang on, audio back. Go ahead and talk for me. Can I can't hear you. Nope, I can't hear you now. I lost your audio. Cannot hear you. On my end, I don't know why. Everything is good to go on my end, but I don't hear you. It's like you went off the screen. Your screen went black. Your your screen went black, and then you popped right back on, but then you had no audio. No, still not there. I saw you mute yourself and bring yourself back up, but there was It didn't activate your audio. I don't know why. You're not muted on my end. I wonder if you left and came back in. Sorry, folks, we're having some technical difficulties. Caroline flashed and then she came back on, and I didn't hear her anymore. You may have to actually like leave the whole thing and then log back in again. Can you hear me? Oh, I was assuming she could hear me. Can you all hear me? Now,
We
Carol, you're here twice, so I'm going to get rid of the one of you that's.
I went forth and multiplied. Apologies. Someone tried to call me on my phone, and because
Oh,
this is on the phone,
I'm not. I think I may just leave you up on the screen twice. I'm afraid to mess with it because I'm afraid I'll lose you
it's
again. So,
Murphy's Law. Yeah. Oh, well, I just
all
multiplied.
right. So this is what I want to ask you, and there's two questions here. One, when we look, whether it's our pets, animals we have as pets, oh good, or if we have animals that are in the food supply, depending on your country, that could vary. I realize from what's permissible culturally speaking. Uh, with all the breeding we've done, like, because I always talk about how plants, if you think you're eating something that your ancestors 15,000 years ago were eating, you haven't done any looking into things, because you're not. Nothing in your grocery store, that you're eating is natural in the sense that that's what they were finding growing in the wild. It's all been curated through crossbreeding and now through genetic engineering. So the same thing has been done to animals. The cattle have all been crossbred to have certain traits. Our pets, those don't look like wolves. A Chihuahua does not look like a wolf or a coyote. It's a vicious little ankle biter. So we've done all this tinkering around to get what we want. How has that affected them, though? You talked about their instincts earlier and how they're still much like they were. How is
It,
that Chihuahua the same as it was before they?
genetically, it is. Behaviorally, it is. Physically, it's not. And this is where the problems are. You get the Chihuahuas, in particular, all the bracky breeds, the squashed-headed things,
Yeah.
pugs, peaks. Basically anything that doesn't look like the super long. You look at a wolf, short back, long legs. Look at most of our domestic dogs, other way around. That's why I picked a farm dog rather than a traditional heeler, because the way the show ones are now, they look like a wombat with teeny tiny legs. They really do.
Yeah, wombat
And
is
of
good.
course, their metabolism is slow because no farmer was going to waste bloody good food on a dog. And again, that's been modified, but it means they get heavy really easily. And those ones take a lot longer to heal. You work on a domestic moggy, often one CST session will sort the problem because they are so close to what I call the original blueprint that they heal quite quickly. Whereas if you've got a Pekingese or a pug or a bloody French
Hmm.
bulldog or whatever,
Yeah.
they will take a lot longer simply because of their physicality. And I mean, that's something I've no doubt you do. And that's your upcoming course, of course, is okay, you do it with people, but moving your awareness into them,
Hmm.
they feel completely different.
Yeah, there's a
And I
difference.
mean, and the way we breed them, a lot of these, Jack Russells and Foxies and um, Maltese Shih Tzu crosses and stuff with these really super twisted front legs, that's painful. And these dogs go on the whole time living like that. And people, or, poor old peaks and pugs and all the brackies that have to sleep with their head up just to get enough air. And
Yeah.
people think it's cute. Don't even start me on that one.
So let's go
But
into let's go into the ruminants, though, because that's because I want to make sure people are going to hear hopefully what they came here for, which was to understand this perspective that, well, these ruminant animals, they're loving, and I'll see videos, right? I mean, and look, it's not like I don't love animals. I love animals. I really do. I always have. I pondered being a vet when I was in my teens. I thought I just may go. And if it wasn't, you know what actually turned me away from wanting to be a vet?
Big
Euthan,
pharma.
euthanizing them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was just
And
like, I
look,
don't, you know.
yeah, I struggle with it depending on the circumstances. I got sacked from 2 jobs because I wouldn't do the pound stuff, bumping healthy ones that people didn't want.
Hmm.
Not my style. I also wouldn't do the hold the puppies for the tail docking and stuff.
Right, right.
But
I mean, but I love them. So I want people to understand when you see me, you're like, well, Keith, you eat meat. You know, I'm like, I know. And I also love animals. And I'll see these YouTube channels and Instagram accounts where you have a farm that's a rescue farm and they're cuddling with cows and the cows
oh,
are, lying down the cows in the field and the cows are rubbing up against them. And
cows are very social animals and they love grooming and they have a huge social thing. And I mean, I was funny. I was talking to a pet cow the other day, and she said to me, "I
now
have two
hang
birds,
tight, hang tight. You were talking to what now?
a pet cow."
So did you hear that, everybody? She was talking to the cow. Make sure they understood that you were talking to the animal. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it was saying it had two herds. One was the other cattle, and the other herd was the human herd. And I thought that was really sweet. And of course, there's that lady in France on Instagram, and she's got the most enormous, I don't know what breed it is, it's got massive horns. It's huge, obviously fully grown, and she does dressage with it.
What?
Yeah, and she's got a friend that does the horse, and they'll do poles, and she rides it, and they do all these different things in the arenas and stuff. And yeah, she takes him out for rides. Fabulous. So yeah, and I mean, there were. I always remember there was a pony club shot years ago. Father said, "You're not getting a horse if you want to ride something. Go and ride a cow." So she did, and she took the cow to pony club, and she was going over jumps. Um, yeah, it was
She's like,
great.
I'll show you.
Yeah, well, she did. I'm assuming that cow never made a hamburger, but they can. And I mean, I had when I was on the farm, the guy who owned it, I was feeding his cattle every day. And yeah, I did really miss them when I went. They do form very strong bonds and they're incredibly protective of their young. Any farmer will tell you don't come between a cow and a calf because, they will kill you. So, yes, they do have the strong bonds. And I mean, look, old story, no different with cats and dogs. It really does depend who owns you, as to what your life is like and how it is for a cow out in a field, particularly if they've got shade, because a lot of them don't, and that does my head in. But if they're in good social big groups and stuff, we've got beef cow in the next paddock to us where I gist my horse, and they're very, very happy, and they come up to the fence and they chat to me every
Hmm.
day. And we've got dairy cows all around where I am as well. But they get to be out, they have a great life. Yeah, the end bit not so much fun, and I'm the first to say that. But that's very different to what my understanding is you guys have. With the and obviously some of it's weather dependent as well, with what I think you guys call your feedlots, but it's basically factory farming.
Yeah,
That
and
is
what's
very
funny,
different.
it is different. But Caroline, there's a lot of. I mean, I grew up in dairy country. That's where I was. There's beef cattle everywhere around here where we live. They're everywhere, and they're talk about trees, talk about shade, talk about green grass, talk about they. As far as I can tell, I'm not a cow. They're living the life, and you hear groups like PETA and they'll make you think that all of our beef here is factory farming in the United States. And I'm not saying it's not heading that direction because the smaller farmer is getting pushed out. But the smaller farmers are like, look, that is not true. In fact, if you don't treat your animals well, it doesn't even financially make sense to abuse your cattle because
Yes.
you don't want a sick animal,
Yeah, but
you
there's
know.
always extremists. And I mean, remember when PETA cracked it with Barack Obama for killing or trying to kill a fly?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah, he swatted at a fly, so they gave him something for trying to kill a fly. And I mean, they would have you believe that, doing anything with a horse is cruel and riding is cruel and. And don't get me wrong, I see plenty of abuse with the way people ride horses.
Mm.
But there's, again, there's always the whole spectrum, yeah, with anything really, isn't there? You get the extremists on both ends and common sense hopefully in the middle, and that's very much the case with the animal world. And then you get those activists that try and pull all the babies out or whatever, and of course they think they're saving them, and the poor bloody calves or kids or whatever are absolutely terrified, don't get nutrition, blah blah blah. um, and I think so much of it is because as a species, as we were saying earlier, we've removed ourselves from nature completely. um, you know, you don't all, and being blunt, all this non-binary stuff, don't see that in the country. You only see that in the cities.
You broke up
Because
on mine.
when
I
you
think you said I think you said binary. And by the way, Angel says
non-binary,
my
yeah,
right. Yeah,
non-binary,
there's
the people,
uh,
because you don't see that out on the farms. Kids that are working on farms understand biology and life because they understand the cycle of life. And that's why,
right.
going back, people used to give children pets, was to teach them about responsibility and also about death, because hopefully the pet would die before any of the family members, so the kids would get a handle on what death is. We don't get
Right.
any of that anymore. We are so far removed.
Yeah, we've insulated ourselves from everything. I think my hopefully
Reality.
Angel, tell me if my audio is better. I just made an adjustment. I hate that it's taken me this long to make that adjustment, but she said my volume was weird. Yours is great. Yeah, it is a total removal from reality and death. And I don't know about where in Australia, but in the United States, we have insulated ourselves from death as much as we can here. Our TV doesn't. Our movies and television show death all the time, and
Yeah,
and
we're the same here. How many
but in
people
real life, what do we do? You know, I was
lock them away? Yeah.
we just make sure we insulate everybody. Angel says my volume is still weird. I don't know what to do. I've made all the adjustments I can, so I'm sorry for the weird volume. Um, I think that's the other thing is we have this in our heads that in the perfect I think the vegan movement has it that if it was in a perfect world, all the animals would just wander around free. You know that we
Without realizing that they'd rip each other to pieces, die by inches. Nature, as I say, is about survival of the species, not the individual. I mean, why do you think we say survival of the fittest?
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
If you're
wild
having a bad day and you can't keep up with the herd, it's all over.
right. Yep, the young,
That's the bit
the very
people
young, the
forget.
very old, and then the disease,
The
they
weak,
go.
yeah. And I mean, that's parasites as well, ringworm, demodectic mange, all the rest. If I had see, and that's how I knew one of my horses, I took him on, he was 7.5 when I took him on. Looked $1 million, just had a few so-called behavioural issues which had stemmed from physical, sorted that. And he was going to a friend of mine to be started under saddle again because I knew I wasn't good enough. Um, and I knew there was something wrong with him, apart from the fact I couldn't release his ribs. There was always more flies around him than there was my old horse that I knew had cancer. Now, flies are
Yeah.
parasites. So, why are all these ones around Shaman more than Doc? And when I got him up there, he died of a heart attack. Was taking a drink of water, died of a heart attack, fell into the dam, was dead by the time he hit the water. But did explain why I couldn't release his ribs. Turns out there's quite a heart problem in that line of warm bloods. But of course, I didn't know that. And when the guy called me, and I mean, he was absolutely shattered, it happened in the paddock overnight, I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because there's always a reason why. So if you see a whole bunch of, it's like 20% of horses have 80% of worms. Or if your dog's got a lot of, or cat's got a lot of fleas, again, parasite. Why? Start instead of, and I mean, don't get me wrong, you want to get rid of the fleas, but you don't want to put all those toxins on. You need to look at what's going on with your animal system that's
You're go you're
making it.
oh my gosh, you're onto such a huge thing right now, and I don't want to get too far away before I ask the next question because we're here to talk about the animals' perspective that are in the food chain. But you're onto something that I have to bring up. there's at least in my curated little world on Facebook, everybody right now, the cure for everything that ails you is to do a parasite cleanse. Parasites are causing all your cancer, they're causing all your cardiovascular problems. Parasites are the problem. And I'll make comments like, well, how convenient that it's just one thing and you can just solve all your problems because it's always about parasites. And I'll bring up to them the very same thing you just said. I said, look in nature. What succumbs? We all have parasites. Everything has parasites in it. It's always about homeostasis. There's a balance that has to be struck, and in a healthy organism, it doesn't get too far out of kilter, and there's a coexistence that goes on. If
Yeah.
if the parasites are taking you over, you got to ask the question: why is my terrain, why is my environment such to allow that? And they just crickets chirp, or they tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
that's demodectic mange in puppies. All puppies have demodectic mites in their skin. It's just, you know, when they start going forth and multiplying at rapid rates, there's obviously a problem with the puppy's immune system.
yeah,
And, this is the thing. And I mean, look, being blunt, 2/3 of us now wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't have survived 100 years ago. I had my thyroid out, was playing havoc. Go back to, a couple
I would.
100 years, no thyroid surgery, I'd be DED dead at age 20 something.
Well,
And
a lot
that's
of us wouldn't be.
reality.
Well, before C-sections.
Oh, yeah, well, that too.
I
So
mean,
many.
the ones that are like actually necessary and not convenient because you want to get
Yeah,
your tea
no,
time.
that's right. And I mean, you go back before that. I mean, even a couple of the queens of England, Jane Seymour and in Henry's reign alone, and after Henry died, Catherine Parr, both died of basically sepsis because the doctors in those days didn't know to wash their hands. And that was a common one too.
Well, let's pull this back into your experience interacting with animals that we typically have in our food supply. You mentioned earlier the 3-week-old calves, and they know their trajectory, why
Yeah,
they're
3 day. Yeah.
3 day. I keep saying 3 week. I'm sorry, 3 day. So when the animals know that this is their timeline is playing out like this, is there anticipation? Is there anxiety around it? I mean, how do they handle that?
Well, I mean, it was purely a comment I made to her because we were walking through the paddock to the horse, which we were both trying to keep alive. So we were much more focused on that. But yeah, it was just, and she was shattered and she said, I leave them to go a bit longer and always try and make sure they have a really good life. But yeah, they knew what was going to happen. As I say, I don't know whether they would lose that knowledge in a few days' time, seeing they were so, newborn or not. Um, Yeah, I'm just tapping into some of the dairy cattle next to my paddock as we speak because they know me all pretty well. Um, Most of them, some of them are a bit apprehensive, um, but it's not about dying per se because they all know what goes on there. There's no such thing as death. It's more the transport to the abattoir because cattle trucks wouldn't be comfortable, and I'm the first to say. And that last bit, if someone went along and just shot them in the paddock, they'd be perfectly fine with that. So again, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And they're actually, fair comment, they're showing me one I'd forgotten about her. He came down one morning and found her dead. She tried to give birth overnight, and both neither she nor the calf had survived it. And I saw him the next afternoon when I went down winching her onto with a tractor. And they both just said that is a worse way to go, which, yes, I've no doubt it wouldn't have been any fun.
So they know it isn't an issue as much about becoming part of the food supply. It's, as
No,
you would imagine, it's
because,
about the quality of the life and how you go out.
yeah, and I mean, look, it's a comment I always get asked with animals that are about to be euthanized. What do you want done with your body? And I mean, basically, they've said, well, we don't really care. It's just the envelope. And I mean, as one dog said to me many, many years ago, we're the ultimate in recycling. And I mean, it's a great analogy because, yeah, everything goes back to the earth. It's only how. And whilst we as humans have stuff, I mean, a friend of mine, they're Greek, so they do the whole, and her daughter, that her partner's dead, and her daughter used to go to the grave every single day. And I could not wrap my head around that. And make sure his candle was lit. And he actually contacted me in the middle of the night one night, going, "My candle's out. Tell him to fix it in the morning." And sure enough, it was.
Now,
That,
slow down, slow down. Go back and slow down. You said the
yeah, he
deceased came to
contacted
you and
me.
said,
Yeah,
"Hey, Caroline, the candle went out."
yeah, yeah. Well, I think he was doing it deliberately to annoy me, because I'd had
Yeah.
the conversation a couple of days earlier, and the daughter could not understand why my biological father died when I was 15. Saw him buried. I think we went back once years later, and I know the cemetery's in, but I sure as hell couldn't tell you. I haven't been back since. We don't do that in my family.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my head around the fact she was going every day. She could not understand that I knew the cemetery but didn't even know where his grave was.
Mhm.
Um, and that's both in, they're the two ends of the spectrum, but
Yeah.
that's what we do as humans. And I mean, Mother's Day is coming up next Sunday here in Australia. And that's one, a lot of people only go to the cemetery once a year, and that's on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Yeah.
that's a human thing. Animals don't have that. They know what happens to their litter mates and all the rest of that. But, nature designs us differently. And they respond accordingly. It doesn't mean they don't feel. All animals have exactly the same emotions as we do. The difference is with their feelings within the species parameters. Taj said to me once, when I yelled at him for
Who
killing a
did? I'm
bird,
sorry.
my cat, one of
Ah.
them, yelled at me one day, or I yelled at him, because he'd murdered a pigeon, and feathers through every bloody room in the house, but his bedroom, I might add. And I said, "How many times I tell you, you don't murder effing birdies. Go and murder mousies. Much easier to clean up." And the response was, "Murdering birdies is good for my stress levels. You should try it sometime." Well, murdering birdies wasn't going to do anything for my stress levels, and drinking coffee wasn't going to do anything for his.
Right.
Species
Right.
difference.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. No.
that's the thing. People don't understand the species difference. And we are human. We can only judge by a human lens. And I mean, you know better than most, when you go into people and feel same emotions, even the same species, it feels very different. And I've no doubt one person feels very different to another. And yet we're all the same species, let alone a different species.
It's a great point. That's a great point. So, so if you have someone who's like, look, I won't eat animals. And I think some people who are all plant based, they even suspect that their health is on the downside. There's the
Oh, I agree
downslide.
entirely. A friend of mine's vegan, has been for years, and I admire her for it. But no, she's always the first one to get anything.
And I think some of them even know that the diet is not serving them well anymore. Maybe at one point it did, and but they won't do it on principle for all the reasons we're talking about. What would you say to people who are like, I won't do it, even if it means bettering even if my health would improve or I would live longer or the quality would be better, I won't do it. What would you say to them other than suit yourself?
Yeah, well, pretty much that. Everyone has their principles to live by, and if they're genuinely doing that, good luck to them. I mean, I couldn't be bothered with it. You've got to do a lot of work to do a balanced vegan diet, but also the fact that the plants have just as much awareness and consciousness as animals do. It's just displayed differently. In the same way, all animals communicate with each other, but we don't see it or hear it as a general rule. Yes, I can tap into it. We are the only ones as a species. Humans are so incredibly isolated. We like to think we've got, we're on streaming, and I've no doubt we're doing at least 2 or 3 countries right now. Whereas animals are talking to everything all over the planet all day, every day, and don't think twice about it. But because telepathics is in a form we don't get unless it's identical twins or something like that, or, deja vu. I'm thinking of Keith and all of a sudden he pops up on Messenger with something. That's telepathics as well. But because that's not something that's, quote unquote mainstream at the moment, ultimately we will all go back to it, I think. It's not recognized. So, in the same way, just because plants um, respond differently and you don't visually see anything. Yeah, I mean, you even go back to those scum that used to do vivisection and saying, oh, the animals weren't feeling anything. They were simply, squeaking and all that. Does my head in. But I mean, really, just because we don't see it, they have plenty of consciousness. Um, it's simply that it's consciousness in a different form. In the same way, murdering birdies isn't going to do anything for my stress levels.
Yeah, I mean the cat that that we feed and stays on the front porch all the time. She has free reign to go out, and we're on the top of a 3,000-foot high mountain peak, and there's woods everywhere, and she's hunting all the time. Is it because she's hungry? She's not hungry. I feed her wet food twice a day, but that girl supplements her diet as often as she can catch something, which is often because it's in her to do it.
Well, it's
And
also the only nutrition she'll be getting because there's nothing in a commercial food.
well,
But
this is animal. I mean, she's getting flesh.
oh, okay, yeah. But also too, and it's the same. I remember speaking years ago to a dog. The people next door rang me, and it's one of the very few times I've spoken with a dog that wasn't theirs because these idiots had moved in with a kelpie down the road and done nothing with it. Now, a smart working dog that has no boundaries, no nothing, is a disaster waiting to happen. And this thing had taken to chasing the racehorses down the road.
Oh,
And the farmer had warned them, two or three, or the trainer had warned them, I will shoot the dog because legally in Australia you can. If the dog's chasing your stock on your farm or property, legally you can shoot them
so hang on. I just side note. So you can shoot the dog if it's chasing your cattle,
on your property.
but if someone's
With
breaking into
breaking
your
in, you've
house,
got to go take all my stuff. Yeah, welcome to Australia.
I just had
Yep,
to put it in there. Go ahead.
yep, yep. Oh yeah, yeah. It's Victoria's worse.
Mm,
Um, but so they said, can you tune into this dog because it's a nice young dog. It's only about 10 or 12 months old. We don't want it being shot. I said, look, yeah, under the circumstances, absolutely. And the dog, yeah, it was bored silly, and it literally gave me like a heroin endorphin rush and had, it was a massive endorphin. I was getting an enormous endorphin hit chasing these horses. And it said to me, what can you give me on a regular basis instead of that? And I had to say
wow.
very honestly, I can't. And I went, right then, that's it.
So as
And
an
it died.
addict,
Well, I mean, that was the only stimulation or whatever it was getting. Yeah. It wasn't getting any training. It wasn't getting walked. They were just leaving it out in the backyard. And of course, it can get through stock fences easy. So it was going off and finding its own entertainment.
so it
And yeah,
got
it was
shot.
shot 3 weeks. Yeah, it got shot 3 weeks later.
Mm.
So yeah, and that's
So
it. You take on a working dog, they're very smart. They need, mental stimulation all the time to keep them going. And that's where, like movies like Red Dog, for example, here in Australia, buggered up the Kelpies. And I mean, there was that, I can't remember it, but it had an Anatolian in it. And I know in
oh
America, there was an awful lot of Anatolian apartment dogs afterwards.
yeah.
And, we're not thinking of the animal's needs, we're thinking of our own. I want a dog like Red Dog, despite the fact that I live in, an apartment or or a little unit with virtually no backyard, and I'm working away from home 12 hours a day.
Yeah, it's not fair to the animals at all.
No, and people are not. And that's it. No one stops to think how they feel because we never see anything from any perspective but our own. In COVID, worldwide, I mean, you couldn't get a dog for a while because everyone adopted them out of the shelters, which was great. Now, particularly in Australia with a housing shortage and all the rest of that, everyone's surrendering them. It's horrendous. And I always remember I can't stand the bloke, but Boris Johnson said one thing that I went, oh my Lord, thank you. He turned around and said anyone that's adopted a dog during COVID and then returns it to the shelter now we're out of lockdown should be jailed for life. But again, we're only thinking of what we want. And oh, I'm bored. It's COVID. I want a dog. Not, well, COVID's not going to last forever. What am I going to do when I go back to how we were? How am I going to look after it? Am I going to have enough hours? No, no one thinks of any of that because we're all so incredibly short term. Or I want a horse to win ribbons. And if I can't do that, well, I'll just get rid of it and get one that can. Not what am I doing? How can I change things to better suit the horse? And I mean, we're all so, ting, 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 microwave generation as it used to be. We all want our stuff instantly. And again, go back to nature. There was a season for everything. What was it? A season to plow, a season to sow, a season to reap. You couldn't do it in the middle. It was a cycle.
And you couldn't rush it.
No.
We tried it. We tried to do some things to change that, but you really can't rush it. It has to go through its process, its life cycle. And I think so much of what we're talking about is it isn't so much about even the length of someone's life as much as it is what is the quality of their life cycle. Every
Mm.
year, every season of their life, what's the quality? If
And
you are you
that's one of the
right?
big things we talk about a lot in the animal world is quality. Because I was mortified. Client rang me yesterday. 16-year-old dog with a growth, and the vets are talking about chopping it out and taking half its jaw in a 16-year-old dog. It's never going. I mean, I that's not something I personally would do anyway.
No.
But it's the sort of stuff you have to look. Every animal is different with every situation. And don't get me wrong, quantity is lovely. We love it. I mean, yeah, thanks to you, I had Mecco for an extra 2 and a bit years. But without quality,
Yeah.
it's irrelevant. And without the life force, and that's where with the Phoenix stuff, with Mecca, when we finally got it in there, you can talk a bit more about that.
That
But
was an
otherwise, he
experience.
wasn't having quality. So it was all just irrelevant.
Yeah, and you're bringing up something I think that's really I didn't even entertain talking about it, but now that you mentioned, I mean, I've wondered, when you are able, you can fill this in better because you're the one who did it, but when the Phoenix force that light, when Mecco, your dog, finally took that in, and he was in resistance for a while. Do you remember?
Oh,
Do you do you do
hugely.
you do you want to talk about? Because I'm
Yeah,
remembering the
yeah.
details.
No, that's no, no,
No,
no.
you go ahead
That's
and you
fine.
tell it. I'm not going to tell it. It was your situation, but
Yeah, well, Mecco was a subplanac that I'd taken on with a horrendous body,
big
and
dog, big
yeah,
dog.
it was about 70 kilo. What that is in pounds, you guys will have to work out, but it's a human weight. Um, and he was a livestock guardian, and he'd been on the chain, and his skeleton was screwed, and his heart was all twisted. We found out later he had a heart attack, and that's because his sternum was all off to one side where he'd been kicked, and then all the fascia was squinched. And yeah, poor little bugger, it wasn't pretty. Um, and he'd had a heart attack and literally dropped down on the spot. And I'd managed to get him to a vet. And I'm going, can we x-ray? Because we actually thought it was a splenic hemangiosarcoma, tumor of the spleen that had ruptured. And she's going, Caroline, he has no femoral pulse in his back leg. How about we try
Oh
and keep
my
him
God.
alive first? Could be a good idea. So she did some transformational acupuncture, sorted that, took the stuff, went no. So then we toddled up to another vet and had an ultrasound, and ultimately found out through blood tests that it was cardiac. So that was fine. He was started on stuff, but his life force was pretty much non existent. Now, in the middle of all of this, and I mean, I had called Keith. I remember calling you one day saying, don't know that I should take him out. And you couldn't even believe he was still alive. He had no life force. You and I
No.
both thought he was going to die that day. Any rate, we Keith and I had already got the Phoenix Force, and the cat had taken it. And Mecco would not. We had tried. I mean, Keith was so sick of me messaging him going, "Can you check again, please? I've just tried something different."
I'm going to back up a second because a lot of people have no idea the context of what we're saying here. So there was this. I had an experience where I had light move into my body, and I told Caroline
Energy.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and energy moved in, and then and I didn't mean to, but Caroline's got it moving in her body, and so the cat had already taken that in, right?
Yeah. The cat had
But
taken it in. The horse
and,
had taken it in.
and to give you an idea what happened, like there are a couple of Great Pyrenees who are on a goat farm nearby, and they guard the goats, and they'll come loose and they'll wander around the mountains here, and they'll come through our backyard, and they know I'll scrub their heads and give them some water. And so one day, and I think they might be siblings, I think, but I moved that light, I shared that light with one and then the other, and the one of them took it no problem, no problem. In fact, it right after I did that, it had two bowel movements within like a couple of minutes. It pooped in the edge of the woods over here in the yard, and then walked over to the field and did it again, and acted kind of loopy. And the other one wouldn't take it in. And for whatever reason, they'd come by. I would try again, and one day it finally did.
Oh,
And
so it
so
did eventually.
it
Okay.
did eventually.
Yeah.
Mecco,
Would
your
not.
dog, would not like.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm not doing it. We're like, yeah, but it's going to help you. Not doing it.
Not doing it. So in the end, the horse turned around and said to me, "Do you want me to try?" And I'd just been talking to you, and I went, "Knock yourself out." So then, yeah, I'd sent you literally just checked in. So I said, "Can you check in again?" And Keith's gone, "Oh my God, it's finally gone in." And the response from the horse was, "If you want something done, ask a unicorn," because that's his nickname. And yeah, but that, I mean, he had 28 months, sorry, 26 months to the day from the day he had that heart attack. And he died 2 months short of his 10th birthday, which is a good age for a dog like that anyway, let alone one with a nutritional, skeletal, heart, and everything other problems that he had. Yeah, I got a lot extra out of him because of that. And I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
was an
that
amazing
light just,
experience.
every time I rang you and said, "Is it okay to share with so and so in the early days?" And you went, "I think she's already got it."
Yeah. Well, this is where I wanted to go with this too. Is I'm wondering. I mean, I know humanity. The reason I talk about the life gates that we have, and I call them the six convergence points, but these are life gates inside of us, and their degrees of open or closed. And I'll use the example often of, you have a couple, let's say they're an elderly couple, they've been married for 50 years, one passes, the other one's in perfect health, and in a couple of months, they just don't wake up. And I'm like, yeah, that's because they make a choice, a deep choice to shut those gates down, and then everything just stops functioning. And I think humanity in general, we come into this world with it more open to some degree, of course, but I don't think it's long until those life gates for most human beings are really closed down, and we're living. That's why I feel around, humanity. I feel around everywhere, and I'm like, everybody feels like they're just about a couple of illnesses away from checking out. I don't. Most people aren't healthy. In fact, I help people go, "Oh, it's terrible that it's happening to people, that they don't have a lot of life for us." And I'm going, I'm talking to you. You're a part of the group.
Yep.
Y- you just tried to exclude yourself. No, no, no. You're in with the group I'm talking about, because I think those gates overall are way reduced. So this is my question to you. Do you feel, communicating with animals, that nature in, well, let's do this in two tiers, that the domesticated animals have their gates been lessened over time by being with us and acquiescing to what we want and what we force them to do? And then the second question, the part of that is, has nature in the wild, do you think they have lost some of the openness of their life gates?
Um, Interestingly, I got some very responsive feedback, particularly where people took a certain thing to be able to work during the COVID thing.
Ah, yes.
Um, that
That will not be named. Yes.
that cannot be named. That thing. Interestingly enough, I'm being shown, and particularly cats, which I would have thought it was more dogs, but anywho, um, that has knocked their life force around. Well, that makes sense because people do talk about hashtag shedding, so that would make sense. But nature itself, in the last, now that's interesting. I've been given the figure 22 years, is closing down dramatically, and they're showing me more toxins, but they're also showing me something they're doing underground, which may or may not come out. Yeah, secret human business that's actually affecting like the core of the earth and then of course with the stuff I work with, as you know, all the G's, the 3G, the 4G, the
Yeah,
5G,
yeah, all the EMF. Hmm.
all the EMF and I'm being shown the satellites. And I do know it was a Native American prophecy. I think it was the Hopis, but don't quote me on that. One of them talked about the end of the world being when the Earth is surrounded by what looks like a spider web, and
Ah,
that's all.
well,
Yeah.
and now it's not just Elon. I can't remember the guy's name. There's another
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
with
But I
tons of
mean,
money. He's launching his series of satellites to do what Elon's doing.
yeah, no, well, that's why I'm working with what I'm working with for obvious reasons to try and mitigate some of that. But every time, and I'm being told very clearly, and I mean, I do it all the time without thinking. Every time I see a bird, a rabbit, whatever else, I'm driving herds of cattle, I'm always sending them that light and that energy. And yeah, I remember the birds comment in the early days
This
of
is
when I was
the
sending the
bird.
cattle.
Tell me who the bird is.
Bird's a friend of mine's cockatoo that literally talks like a human. That's won over $500 from Keith. He's quite proud of that in a bet. He's won a lot of money over an awful lot of people. He goes busking on New Year's Eve and usually pulls about 6K per New Year.
He's a
He's a
singer.
great bird. But he was turning around and yeah, saying, well, if you put the light into the cow and it takes it, does that mean the humans get it when they eat the hamburger? And that's a valid point. I
It's a
haven't actually
valid point.
traced, yeah, we haven't traced it to that. But, I am everything, and I often send it through the ground and the ley lines and stuff like that. And you have noticed differences in areas that I've done that. So I think just continuously doing that will at least help to mitigate some of it.
It steers me into you mentioned that is in the meat. It's the lights going into the cow. Is the meat eaten by the humans? Is that going into the human? And what's interesting is people. That's one of the things you'll hear from people who don't do meat. They're like, look, that's you're eating death, and you're eating all the adrenaline, and you're eating all those things, and because they're going through all the slaughtering process and how they're not being taken care of. You're eating all of that. And I'm like, I mean, yep. And I'll tell you this, if I'm on horseback and I have a bow and arrow and I'm that talented with a bow and arrow and I'm chasing a bison
Same
and
thing,
me,
only
me and my
worse.
you think there isn't some adrenaline going on at that point
Mm.
in the
Yeah, and
bison?
that's it. Even going back to hunting mammoth,
Yeah, sure.
none of it, in every scenario, it's all the same. I mean, the cow, as I've said before, the ones that they do the abattoirs where they drive to you, you throw down the feed, they
Yeah,
go bang.
yeah,
That's by far, if you don't agree with it, call it the least worst.
yeah. I
But
mean,
that,
obviously, right? That's a no-brainer. That would be the way to
yeah,
do it.
yeah, it would be. And I mean, I think they could do more of that kind of stuff. But anywho, it's one of those things that it's you even go back 100 or a couple of 100 years. I don't think there was a single, or very rare good death. Pre-surgery and everything else. You mightn't have lasted as long, but by God, you went down hard and you suffered a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there weren't
Whereas
pain. We
these
didn't have the
days,
painkillers, and we didn't have
yeah,
any of those
yeah,
ways that you couldn't
no,
morphine someone into oblivion until they passed
nope,
out and died. They just suffered. But with the meat, like when I take food, I will feel. I won't say every time, but I try to be more conscious about it all the time. I'll feel into what I've got cooking,
and that's what
and
you do. That's
and
what your course will
I'm
teach.
working. Yeah, I work on the food to change it, and you can do an experiment. I've done this with wine a number of times. You can take a bottle of wine, assuming you'll drink wine, and then you take the wine, you pour it in two different glasses. You take one of the glasses, and you can sit there, and within a minute or two, with some pretty simple techniques, you can imbue a lot of energy, transformative energy, into that one glass. And you just say, go ahead, now drink that, and then drink this one that I didn't do anything to, and they will taste different.
I was going to say, is the color different?
I don't notice the color shifting. I haven't noticed that, but the flavor, it's totally obvious. And it seems, in the little bit of experimentation we've done, that it varies when another person does it. They might impart their own particular unique energetic flavor to the wine. Well, food's the same way. Blessing, see, growing up in my household as a growing up as a Protestant, you'd ask God to bless the food. Well, I hate to tell everybody this, but as far as I'm able to feel energy, there's nothing happening. People are doing that. The food doesn't, I'm feeling the food after the blessing's been said by somebody. It doesn't change. The food feels no different. The energetic profile did not shift, whether it's a plant or an animal, nothing changed. I
I
think
wonder how much of that, though, is because, as you say, it's purely route, purely habitual, bless this food, versus someone that genuinely means it. I've noticed, and I mean, I found that out when Unicorn was sick, and I was putting a light in his food because I was desperate, do everything. And it seemed to make a huge difference. And
but
I
there was a
used to,
connection. You were
yeah,
making
absolutely. And
you were already connected to something that was passing through you,
I
if you
do
will.
that with Anus. And I mean, Anu shouldn't be here. We all know that. And I did it with Mecco, and how much of, it's always multifactorial. But I do think it makes a difference when you genuinely mean it versus pure routine.
I mean, I saw people who were very heartfelt in it, and
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think you know what it is. I think it's the removal of ourselves from the dynamic. When we as Westerners, we look and go, well, I am a nothing piece of shit human. I'm worthless because I've told been worthless since I was born. I'm stained. I'm tainted. I will ask this benevolent God to step in and do something that I have nothing to do with because I'm not worthy to even be involved in the transformation of food. But I'll ask God to do it, but I'm out. That's the
Versus the through you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am a conduit. I am an embodiment of, because I work to be that, in order to then, yes, be that conduit into the food source. That's a very different thing. And please understand, everybody, I'm not suggesting that everybody out there who is part of a religious organization or is clergy or something aren't connected. I'm just saying that I think a lot of people who go through like you're suggesting, the routine, they aren't really that connected, and they've removed themselves from the process anyway in their mind, and nothing's really happening. I think you can take food that's not so great, and see Master Owen Way, who created Pongu Shingon. I knew this from eating his food. He would take all these ingredients, and he wasn't buying garbage. He was buying pretty good ingredients, and he would, as he's working with the food, you can't see him doing anything. He's doing it without making an obvious motion. He's just working with the food. He's imbuing it, and it's the best food you've ever had in your life. Is it because he's a good chef? Well, yeah, he's a great chef, but it's because of what he's doing, putting into the food, that made the food taste even more amazing than it should. In fact, Paul Frazier, a friend of mine, he would say, he goes, I mean, we would go get crappy hamburgers from a fast food joint, and you're thinking, oh gosh, this is what we're going to eat. And he goes, it would be the best hamburger you ever put in your mouth. And you'd go back later on your own and go, I don't know why I've been avoiding those. And you'd go buy the hamburger by yourself and bite into it and go, nope, this is why I wasn't eating them. They're terrible, because of what Master O was able to do with the food. Dana, I want to put this up there because Dana's got a good point here. I like this. Hang on one second, Dana. Um, Dana says, I'm just going to ask about adrenaline. When I was a kid eating hot dogs, I would have the most violent nightmares and images. Of course, I don't eat hot dogs now, but even with the best quality meat these days, I get some stresses. Or a clearing you like to do before eating meat to release the stress. Maybe it's the EMFs too. Well, no doubt EMF is a constant thing unless you're living in a Faraday cage. Um, I mean, I want Caroline to weigh on this as well and what she does, but that's what I'm saying, is that I merge my consciousness with the food, and then I ask to feel all the properties that could be altered, that need to be changed for it to be more nutritious for those that would eat it. And then I will feel, because of what I do every day, I will feel my body automatically start working with those patterns. But that's because that's how I work in my daily life with clients or with anything else. But there are certain things, like, Master O taught us, because Pangu Shingon was my first qigong form, that you just say the password phrase into the food. Take kindness and benevolence as basis. Take frankness and friendliness to heart. Speak with reason. Treat with courtesy. Act with emotion, and accomplish results. And the more the person entrained with that qigong form every day, the better they were able to imbue the food with those beautiful properties when they would say that phrase into the food. When Caroline was mentioning the light earlier, the light, that was far less complicated, really. You could just say, may you be healed with light, may you be filled with light in your mind, if you would do that. And it would take like no time at all to change the composition of the food, to basically clear it, is what some people would call it. But it's more than just clearing it, it's imbuing it with life that maybe it didn't even have to begin with. Or maybe the food has been around long enough that it's close to what we would say in Chinese medicine is called wrecked food. This goes for meat or with vegetables. When I hear plant-based people go, "Oh, you're eating all this dead flesh," I'm like, look, there's life force in the freshness of the culling of plants or animals. The closer to the point of the kill, there's more life force in it, and over time, even through refrigeration, it loses its life force properties that it's holding. And so when food hasn't rotten, hasn't reached the state of rotted yet, but it doesn't have any life force, that's called wrecked food. It's edible, but what it's going to impart when you assimilate is far less than if it was closer to when it was harvested. So you can imbue food that's not so life force filled, maybe because it's too far out from the time that it was culled, and you can bring it back up again to something that's greater than what it would be otherwise. Caroline, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just getting some seriously weird stuff as you were talking. So there you go. Part of it, with hot dogs, it's not good meat. It's the lowest parts of the food, the proverbial meat chain, so to speak. So there's nothing good in a hot dog. It's also reacting with a bucket load of chemicals. Hot dogs are full of them.
Usually,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I think, and so many, yeah, that's why RFK Jr. at the moment is trying to get half of it out. And then interestingly enough, one of the first ones he managed to get out was the color red, and what color are hot dogs. But what I'm being told, and it's, yeah, on 2 coffees, no food, and this is so weird, I couldn't have thought it up myself. I know that glyphosate, Montana, and all of that was actually made by Joseph Goebbels, chemists. Most people aren't aware of that. So the bloke that was happily knocking off all the Jews, he was the one doing what we now spray on all our crops. Go figure.
There's huge
And
stories there.
yeah, oh yeah, there's lots there. No, that's trying to remember whose podcast that was on, but yeah, that one made me sit up and got my attention. I think it was one of Tucker Carlson's. But on top of that, a lot of the chemicals, which I know we use in colorings and stuff, I've been told are also genetically engineered to bring out anything like that and magnify it, which would not surprise me because I mean, at the moment, they're doing all those ticks over where you are to try and get people being allergic to meat as part of the
Alpha gal.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all of that. But yeah, I am being told that the IVs, coloratives, preservatives, all of those are actually magnifying what is already in not so great meat, which then would not surprise me that you are going to be reacting to it. I can't eat hot dogs. I quite like them, but if I've more than one, yeah, those Savilo sausage things, we used to have the little cocktail ones or whatever they were called. 2 of those, I'll be sick as a dog for 12 hours. And I have pretty much a cast iron gut for anything except spice. So there's definitely also other stuff in there.
Yeah, I think that's something we forget. What you're bringing up is, we talk about what's adrenaline, the meat. It's like, well, God, and what else? I mean, how you gonna split the hairs of the adrenaline in the meat, and also all the other garbage that the animals have been injected with, if they've been exposed to that, and just now what they're picking up from everywhere. I mean, there's just, even when you try to do the best to take care of your people and your animals, trying to do that is so difficult now because of everything we're exposed to, whether it's EMF, whether it's chemicals, whether it's satellites that never stop beaming to the earth ever, what's going on underneath the earth, like you
That's
mentioned.
big.
I mean, so really, it's that this is, but that's banging my gong, which I try to tell people all the time. Look, if we don't start doing something above and beyond what we think is being healthy, we're not going to fare very well. And
And
I'm
that
pretty
also shows how important the energetic thing is. I mean, go back originally to, keep your attitude equals keep your health. And everyone knew people that were happier and more upbeat generally survived longer because it's mentality, physicality is all linked. But go further than that with the energetic. I look at what one particular cat springs to mind. She was in a shelter at 17. She'd only been fed commercial crap food and her kidneys were on the way out. I wouldn't have even readopted her. But these people, clients of mine, got her. She's now 22, which is the equivalent of about
whoa.
120. Yes, she's having subcut fluids a couple of times a week because the kidneys aren't great. That helps, gives her quality. But that cat has gone, it's taking me 17 years to get to somewhere that I can be waited on in a five-star hotel. I raise an eyebrow and people come dashing to do my bidding. I'm staying here for as long as I can. Now, I don't think any of her is physicality. It's pure bloody mindedness and stubborn energy. And we look at so much of where we're at now. How the hell are we as good as we are? It is the energetic side of it that Keith works with that we really do need to focus on, because if you've got the right energy, and I mean, even go to your religious stuff, look at Jesus, had enough energy, touched them, they were healed of whatever. That's energy, in spite of the fact that they probably had very little food, were chock full of worms, and were living way back in the day where, we didn't have any of the sanitation or amenities that we take for granted today.
Yeah, that's all very true. So I want to let people, know, um, that I've sent many people in the North American continent, your way, and in fact, when I was posting about us doing this, somebody on there said, "Oh yeah, I am. I've worked with Caroline. She was fantastic." And that's what nobody I've ever sent your way has ever said anything other than, "Wow, that was insightful." And I know you well enough. I think sometimes it's also an indictment. You're just like, "Look, this is what's going on with your animal, and you're the major reason why this is happening. So it isn't just about the animal; it's about their dynamic and what the human is doing that's not working." And I'm sure that happens a lot, where it's that you're basically counseling. You're counseling a group, at least two, if not more, creatures on how to change the dynamic so that the animal can have a better quality of life.
Yeah, well,
I
we
mean,
only, as I've said before, we only see things through our human parameters. And of course, murdering birdies, you're not going to roll in horse poo and eat it, but I can guarantee you my dog is. My dog's not going to jump on Google.
right? Yeah, it's a very different. It's a great thing you've said about species, understanding that species are different and our parameters. I like that word. Our parameters are different, but it doesn't mean that they're not feeling or experiencing things. And I think if we could just reacquaint ourselves with the process that everything is going to cease being in this particular packaging that we call a dense experience on planet Earth. It's all going to end in that cycle and move on into another form.
But
If
it
we could,
doesn't mean it's ending.
it
And
doesn't. It
that's
didn't
the
end.
difference. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, I speak with deceased all the time. Not my own because I'm too bloody close. It really adds insult to injury when the cat and the dog tell you that Mecco's in the house and I can't pick up on him. But,
Ah.
that's just, I don't make the rules. They suck. But, um, I tell clients that all the time because, the close you need detachment. It's like the sound of one hand clapping. The more you want, the less you get. But yeah, I mean, our animals are around us all the time. People are around us all the time. It's simply in a different frequency. And I believe as humans, we only see something like 4%
Oh,
of the
it's pitiful.
spectrum.
It's
Yeah. And
pitiful.
I
We're blind.
always, yeah, I remember one woman I knew, and I've always wanted until I spent a day with her, the old spend a day in their shoes. And I'll talk about you in a sec with that. But she used to see spirit as clearly as she saw 3D people. And it meant
Wow.
she couldn't go to a shopping centre without someone. Because, okay, if you see someone in a war uniform or a Victorian dress, pretty bloody obvious. But you get someone in a black t shirt, jeans, and long hair, they could have been in the 1960s or today. So she's talking to someone, and then everyone's looking around going, and they think she's talking to herself because that's how clearly she saw them. And I've always wanted to be able to do that until I
Yeah.
walked that day with her and went, that I can see a whole lot of problems there. How do you even know that the person at the counter is the person at the counter? Because she's seen that before as well. This was pre self checkout. So, yeah,
Mm.
it doesn't mean they're not there. She was seeing everything we simply weren't. But that's where I'd like to bring that up into the how you feel and how you see things with Keith's upcoming course. Please talk about it, Keith. But being able to get in and feel, people say, walk a mile in their shoes or whatever. Being able to get in and feel changes your perceptions, not only of them, but it will also change your perceptions of yourself over time.
No, that's so true. And the ability to, because in people, as you and I've spoken this many different times about how different people pull in information and experience it differently in the body, and mine for whatever reason has been visceral. And I see some things, and if I put more attention on extracting information through internal sight, I will see more. But most of it, the easiest way for me is to pull it in physically and to feel it in my body and to mirror what's happening in someone else, mirror what's happening in a dog or a cat or whatever. I will try to mirror it in my body so I can feel the state that they're in, and then also then know when I'm working on them how much improvement they're making, because you'll feel the energetic structure start to change and improve, and then you're then just waiting for the person or animal's physical structure to reflect the energetic shift that took place. If you're good enough at feeling that happening, when you did work, like, no, I did a good job. Now, is it going to express itself physically as beautifully as the energetic structure felt when I was done? And that's always the question, is how's that going to play out? And that's out of your hands, but that goes with, but all that work that we're talking about, I have to do it in me first. I have to be able to work within myself first. So in like a class like intuition development, I've tried to promote this, I kept trying to figure out how was I going to promote the class, because it starts tomorrow. And I've been trying to figure out how do I promote this. And I realized most of the people, I had more people who were going, I'm an empath. I feel everything. I'm like a raw nerve. Um, I feel special, and yet I feel like I'm victimized,
Double edged sword, it's about controlling it, which you do
right?
beautifully.
And it's like, so, and I got a lot more of that than I ever got. Oh yeah, I don't feel much of anything, but I want to be able to feel. I was really targeting that first. And my mind's like, oh, I'm just going to get a bunch of people who are like, I'd love to do what you're doing and feel things the way you do and have a more sensory rich life. That's not what I'm getting. I'm getting more interest anyway, from the, I feel like the raw nerve. I can't really interact with that many people, or I get overloaded. I can't go out into public. I can't, you name it. And so for me, I'm tailoring it to where I can handle both. If you want to learn how to feel but you don't, great. We're going to do that over 8 weeks. If you feel like the raw nerve and you feel everything, your aperture's too far open and you don't have resilience, I'm going to help you with that as well the
You
best I
really
can,
need Keith. Yes.
because I really feel like that's what I do pretty well is take people who are weak and yet sensitive and beef them up. But it to be quite frank, it takes some daily effort. It doesn't just I don't draw some symbols over you and there you go, you're in. But I will teach you how to do some very simple things that can really change your degree of feeling fragile. So anyway, that starts tomorrow at noon and goes for 8 weeks. You'll see at the post of this on Facebook, you'll see I'll put the link down below. And what I want Caroline to do is I want you to go to the same. I want you to say something here in a minute, of course, for people to write down. And I wish I had it. I should have done that on the banner, and I didn't do it, and I apologize. But I want you to put your information, how to reach you, on this on my page as well. That will have this link or this video. I want you to put that down below. So everybody
Yep.
who wants to
Yep.
know
Yep.
how to contact Caroline to have her work with your animals, and if I can give a story here, because
Origin
Caroline,
and the puppy.
well, we
That one was
could.
good. Yeah, that we've got to do your other one, but we've got to do Origin because I still laugh about that.
Well, what's funny is, we would talk animals in the past. You're like, and then we'd be talking, and you're like, oh, hang on, I'm getting things, and you're like, yeah, but I only get things about humans when I'm talking to you, and
Yeah,
like,
it's all his. It's his energy I'm clearly tapping into that
I'm
expands stuff. But yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I think you can go beyond that. And so the truth is that Caroline can work with humans as well and extract a bunch of information from their field because she's done it and she does it. And and I hope Angel's okay with me telling this story. But this is the one I want to tell because it connects both worlds. Angel and I have had an issue with bats liking to visit the interior of our homes, two of them now in two different locations in North Carolina. And they don't just find their way into the house, they will then find their way into Angel's room to be with her. Not just hang around in the house, but they find her. So we moved to a new location, okay, about an hour away. And sure enough, a bat gets into the house, makes its way into where Angel's room is upstairs, and she's got a bat in there. And I'm like, Caroline, uh, you won't believe this. Another bat has found its way to Angel. What do you make of that? And you just tapped right in. And do you remember what you said?
was a friend that I know she used to drive Angel Batty.
She was a friend of Angel's, close friend from I think gosh, age 12 up. They'd known each other for years, all the way through graduation and post, and they were really good friends. She's really funny. Had a certain type of a laugh. I think you mentioned a laugh. You basically described her friend with some very key characteristics in the moment. They were fresh, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm seeing this." And the bat was sent. You said was sent by her deceased friend in there to basically say, "Hey, what's up?" And Caroline didn't know that her friend had died recently. She didn't know anything about this girl, but there was key things that were just fresh coming through her that she mentioned. And I just passed them along to Angel, and Angel goes, "Wow, that's her." I think even described how she looked or something too. It's just you're dead on the money. So there's been a lot of times where Caroline, yeah, we're talking about animals, but there's the human connection there. Caroline's good with both. In fact, there was a cat that you were called in from a distance here in the States. You're there in Australia to talk about this cat and what's wrong with the cat. And basically, you told the person who had custody of the cat, hey, some of this goes back to the couple that had the cat before you. And you tapped into the couple and to describe the dynamic, and you were dead on the money. So, so if Caroline works with you with your animals, which you should do, you're going to get the dynamic. She's really good at putting that human and animal dynamic together just on the fly. It's just coming through.
Well, I
Tell me,
mean, we are all connected. That's the whole thing, aren't we?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
I mean, the way Keith and I discovered we were really connected, we'd come together through what was NES Health, is now
Right,
Energy for Life.
right, right.
And I was talking to Keith about something, and Origin was what, 18 months old or something at the time?
Something like that.
And he was carrying on, which he doesn't normally do. And he was saying he wasn't getting any sleep because of the dog in his cot, the big white dog. So, any rate, quite sarcastically, I sent through a couple of photos. And it turns out that it was my Anatolian shepherd that had died of a brain tumor age 4. And I mean, with all due respect to Falco, I hadn't thought of him for a while, was the other side of the world in Keith's child's cot, hogging all the thing, so there was no room. And when we sent the photo of Falco, yeah, Oregon's going, that's the doggy that's hogging my bed, basically.
Yeah.
And Keith and I went, right. And the rest, as I say, is history.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, if you're having any kind of really anything along the lines of what we're talking about, get a hold of Caroline. She can help you figure out what is going on that your vet's not going to get, and quite frankly, not many. And eh, Caroline she'll give you insight that's going to shock you. You're going to have details, and you're like, what the heck? And it's going to resonate. You're going to like, that's it. But then here's the key. Here's the key. You're going to have to actually follow what she tells you to do for it to work.
Because it's no different to humans. Just talking fixes nothing. You've
You
got
got
to
to
take
actually do it.
action.
Yep,
Action
that's
is
right.
louder than words.
Yep. Well, everybody, thank you for being here with us for an hour and I think 36 minutes at this point.
Good
Appreciate it.
grief.
Yeah. And
Thank,
and
thank
and
you,
I
everyone.
yeah, thanks for hanging with us and
Yes.
all who watch this in retro. And we'll put our information down below. Caroline's going to put our information down below. So just look in the comment section and you'll see Caroline's contact information. And there you go. And we'll do this again sometime here in the near future and cover a different topic. But hopefully leaving everybody this, hopefully you'll understand that what Caroline's getting at when it comes to your food choices, I would encourage people, I'll just put it this way. I would encourage people to eat what actually is making you healthy and understand whether it's plants or animals, something is losing its ability to live in the current form it's in for you to have something to eat. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And to disconnect and go, well, it doesn't have a faith in the central nervous system, then that's fine. There's no big deal. But if it does have that, I can't touch it. Try to remember what Caroline had to say about both and try to plug ourselves into the fact that we are a part of the cycle of nature here and we should try to grasp that a little more and not distance ourselves from the fact that you're going to die, I'm going to die, and everything else is going to die, and yet we're not going to end. As Caroline said earlier, we don't end, we just lose this particular form. Thank you all for being here and have a good night, good morning, good day. And Caroline, go get something to eat.
Yes, Keith. Thanks, everyone.
All righty.
Take
Goodbye,
care.
everybody.
Bye bye.
And